Bruce has heard a code word and now thinks he's Kenner. Here's a look at the brand new McFarlane Toys DC Superpowers Batman from Zur-En-Arrh. Bruce Wayne took part in an isolation experiment and was given the post-hypnotic phrase Zur-En-Arrh. When heard by Bruce years later, the trigger phrase shatters his mind. Batman had previously developed a new persona within himself, calling himself the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh. While Bruce is creating alter egos, this original ego would like to thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys that kindly provided this sample of Batman from Zur-En-Arrh that we could have a look at this review. The figure is a little bit taller as it's using a different Batman than you would expect. He's actually about 4.5 inches in height, where Batman from Zur-En-Arrh is about 12 centimeters tall. Serving up to you now, not on a silver platter though, I just don't have the budget for a silver platter, is a Batman of a similar size. The Batman from Zur-En-Arrh just happens to be using the same mold as the first wave Batman we got from Superpowers. And I think honestly it was smart on Todd McFarlane's part to dust off the mold for this release, because it was a fine Batman, it just wasn't as good as the classic looking Batman we got a little bit later. Now I will say though that this body works really well for movie tie-in figures. We get an all black release of this Batman that's kind of more tied into like the '89 Batman movie. We're also getting a gold variant of this one that's going to be part of this wave. We'll be looking at an upcoming review. So this classic Batman has a place to stick with kind of that design of Batman. But I think for different iterations, I think it's still, there's life to be made in this particular mold. I'm glad to see that they decided to go this route instead of this one here. Bringing in some other Batman family members. Here's what he looks like with Nightwing. Nightwing always has a hard time to stand because his legs so stupid together like this. Here's what he also looks like as well with Robin. And here's, speaking of different iterations of Batman, the Batman who laughs. Now, here's the but. Because the figure is using that first wave Batman, it does mean as well that he's going to be molded with closed fists. So the figure has no accessories whatsoever. If you would consider it, though, to be an accessory, the Batman from Zur-En-Arrh does technically come included with a cape. The cape, though, if you were to look at this, just has that C loop to it, and that just fits over top of his body. I don't think, though, that this is metal. Could very well be wrong, but it just fits over top of his neck just like this, just clips in place, and you get yourself a nice flowing fabric cape. The fabric material, I don't know if I've already commended them for using this type of material, but the material does feel good, like it's a good quality stretchy material. It gets bunched up from time to time, but like the actual material that they use is pretty good. Unfortunately, though, I don't know if the material has resulted in staining the side of his yellow arms. Can't help but notice there's a little bit of smudging here to the side. It could either be from the red paint on the front, or it could be some stainage resulting from the cape actually finding its way. Because you'll notice it's also on the other side as well. So this is something you'll probably want to be aware of if you're picking this figure up for yourself, that the yellow plastic will probably absorb some of the purple paint or the purple dye that they put in the actual material. Other than that, though, getting a closer look at the head sculpt, again, to bring back in the first wave Batman, so you guys can see, they are using the exact same head. They haven't tooled anything differently this time around, although they have added nicely this darker patch of black on the front of his cowl. The ears are placed in exactly the same way, and you'll notice that the bodies are identical to one another. The only thing that they have changed differently, of course, is changing the color of the plastic for his cowl, changing now, swapping out the gray for the yellow on the arms, and I'm now giving him a red torso instead of the gray. I like the symbol that they've put on the front. It's somewhat in the middle. It looks like it's kind of just leaning a little on an angle, and they've also got a little symbol there on the front as a utility belt. Still as the original utility belts, they haven't molded anything different there. Still a nice looking figure though. I really like the cowl. And while I did think that maybe the coloring of the cape not being quite close to the coloring of the gloves and the coloring of the trunks would bother me more, but I think that the lighter color works a little bit better, and it just stands out, I feel, just a little bit more. Down below, of course, you got your standard articulation in the legs, so we're going to talk more about that in a moment. And again, still, instead of actually painting these down below here in blue, like the original first wave Batman, they decided to paint it instead a very nice dark purple. All the colors work really well on this figure. The Zur-En-Arrh that we had looked at from the DC Multiverse, for example, would have gone the approach of more darkening the color of the red and making the color of the orange a little bit more, not darker necessarily, but definitely a little bit more of a yellowish tint. This is a much brighter color of yellow that they approached here, and a much brighter red as well. Still, again, a little bit bummed that unfortunately he doesn't have any gripping hands, because again, he doesn't have any gripping hands, therefore means that the figure doesn't necessarily need accessories. I just really wish that this guy could have actually been able to wield something. Not a gun, because I know we're all kind of against the idea of packing figures along with guns, but a batarang. Something could have gone a long way just to hold inside his hands. Now, the figure's articulation is going to be exactly the same as that first wave Batman, and really, for the most part, exactly the same as all the other Superpowers figures. His head normally would be able to rotate all the way around. Unfortunately, though, with all the cape that he has around it, the head has more of a struggle just to be able to rotate like this. To rotate it all the way around, forget about it. The arms do easily rotate, though, all the way around. Still, again, a little unfortunate that I've got a little bit of a stain there on the side. He also has a swivel there on this side, too. No swiveling at all in the hands. So if you're looking for swivelage, it's not going to happen. There's no waist articulation either. Batman from Zur-En-Arrh does have at least the leg options to be able to sit inside of a Batmobile. He doesn't have his own version of the Batmobile yet, but I already have a Batman Batmobile from Superpowers from we looked at from before, so of course maybe Zur-En-Arrh can borrow that for a ride from time to time. It does have the knee bends, so of course that's nice to see. The original classic Kenner figures as well would have had knee bends, so that's not necessarily something that's been introduced to this line. The original Superpowers from Kenner also had those as well. And again, like the figure does have pegels on the undersides of his feet. It's a really nice looking Batman from Zur-En-Arrh. This is one of those cases where I feel like a mold use and just simply repainting the mold works extremely well. If this was just a case that they decided to dust off this mold again and just gave us like, I don't know, like an old gold Batman or an old silver Batman, I don't think would have worked as well. But, you know, to give us a character like Batman from Zur-En-Arrh, who I'm actually a big fan of as well, so I might maybe lean a little more to the buys side of things. Still, I'm glad to see that they decided to use this mold as opposed to this mold. I don't think, like, it's not a case that this mold wouldn't have worked well for Batman from Zur-En-Arrh. Concerning, of course, it's the exact same character, you think that they would be a little bit more of the same similar size. But like similar to Thomas Wayne's Batman that we haven't had yet a chance to look at here on this channel, that's also from the Superpowers. They decided to go instead with the using of this mold as opposed to this one. And I think actually I prefer this mold being used from, well, taking the cues from this one instead of this one, because I think that mold works a little bit better. This mold didn't work as well when it came to a more classic looking Batman. Like if you want one that really looks like the original Superpowers, you can't really beat the one that we get here. But definitely I think the mold works extremely well if you want to get, again, different versions of Batman as he appears in the comics. I have similar feelings towards the DC Superpowers Batman Zur-En-Arrh as I did with the DC Multiverse release. Now, I can't sell you guys on the idea of picking this figure up. If you were the kind of collector that passed on the Multiverse release, then you're probably going to be also the same kind of collector that's going to walk right by this guy if you happen to see him on the store shelves. Take a few steps back if you can. Just look at him again and just remember this zany reviewer is praising how cool the colors were and how over the top they were, end up giving us a Batman that somehow really worked. You might find yourself then taking him off the peg, putting him into your shopping cart, walking through, oh, you got to pick up some socks. Oh, I got to also get a carton of milk. Get him to the front checkout, get him home, put him on the shelf, and look at him and just say, you know what? That guy knew what he was talking about. Batman from Zur-En-Arrh is a pretty fun-looking figure. Unfortunately, though, while being a fun figure, he uses still the same problems of using the first-wave Batman mold, that he doesn't have any gripping hands. Even if he didn't have an accessory, I mean, I get the idea that not all the Superpowers figures are going to come included with accessories, but at least giving him gripping hands could then mean you could give him an accessory from another figure. It's not going to be the case. I like the purple of the cape. Unfortunately, it's stained a little bit on the sides of the arms. I can't imagine that's just going to be on my figure, that if you are picking this guy up, just, you know, overlook that part of it when you're still thinking, boy, that zany guy behind the camera, he was right about Batman from Zur-En-Arrh. Just overlook, of course, some staining that might be on the back of his shoulders. The rest of the figure, again, is really nice. Now, this one, I think, is probably like the 4th or 5th time that this mold's been used before. We got a Thomas Wayne release. We got a couple of variations of the original blue cowl Batman. I'm sure we're probably going to be getting this guy again. The mold, again, works well for characters like this. If you want a more classic-looking Batman, can't overlook, of course, the classic-looking blue cowl Batman that we got from that kind of like, I want to say like the resurgence of the Superpowers figures. Because like from that point on, the Superpowers figures seem to have been different. The plastic feels different. The paint looks a little bit different. As a whole, though, I'm glad to see that we finally did get ourselves a Batman from Zur-En-Arrh. Take a few steps back. Get your carton of milk if you have to first. Grab the whatever size socks you guys are buying for yourselves. But backtrack a little bit. Pick this guy off the shelf. You guys won't be disappointed. Big thank you once again to the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did provide this sample of the brand new DC Superpowers Batman from Zur-En-Arrh that we had the chance to have a look at in this review. Like this figure? Want to get this figure? I hope so. If you guys did enjoy this video, want to throw it a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing and you're on board to see more Superpowers, hey, you're in luck. I've got a big stack right over here. I know I've been saying that a lot in recent reviews. I got a big stack of something. A big stack of something. There's still going to be more videos coming your way, so hit that subscribe button down below. Turn on the bell notification, and most importantly, come back, Jack, because we're definitely going to have a lot more Superpowers reviews coming your way. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.